Om Shanti. So welcome all of you. Let's, as always, before we start, we spend a minute in silence and invoke the Supreme Divine Being. So welcome all of you once again to the 23rd episode on Honesty for the Values for Life series. And we are so fortunate we have with us a very senior brother, Brother Ken, who's the coordinator of the Latin America Centers of Brahma Kumaris with us. So thank you so much, Brother Ken, for joining. And before we go on to the formal welcoming and the introduction, let me just share this October story, the 2nd October. You know, and people who in India would be knowing it much more better. There were two important national leaders who have their birthdays on this day. So all of us all over the world are aware of Mahatma Gandhi, who's also called the father of the nation of India. But there's also another important leader whose significance actually is not known to many people, even in India. He was Lal Bahadur Shastri, also one of the great leaders. And what reminds me of him is very close to spirituality. He had this slogan of Jai Jawan and Jai Kisan. Again, it's Hindi word. Jai Jawan means he was saying that the army soldiers, he was highlighting their role in independence of India. And Jai Kisan. Kisan is the farmers of India. So it's basically the green revolution and the revolution of the independence. He really highlighted those 2 points. So we are very fortunate that it coincides with 2nd October, both these great national leaders. And Mahatma Gandhi, all of you know, he symbolizes honesty. In Hindi, we call it imandari. So with this brief preamble, let me just now pass it on to the Vancouver team, Sister Taran and Sister Claudia, to welcome officially Brother Ken. Over to you all.
Good morning, good evening to all of you, and welcome Ken Bai. I'm very happy to welcome you today. I was remember 4 years ago when you came to us. So you are so special. So I got some yellow rose because this represents friendship. When we need a friend, we go to you because you know that you are very honest and will help us. And so I thought this is the perfect caller for him. Welcome to our program. And I'll pass to Taran for her to give a little bit of a feeling of Canada.
Thanks, Claudia. Om Shanti. Really lovely to see you.
Om Shanti, brother. And on behalf of all of us, I'd like to present the sweet Canadian maple syrup, just like our father and a brother, to a sweet brother. There's our maple syrup. And welcome.
I wish it wasn't a virtual. I wish it was not virtual maple syrup. I wish I could go there and take it from you.
Maybe that's coming pretty soon with the technology that we can pass it over like this. So welcome on behalf of all of us.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, Yes, so 23 times you've had this program under Manoj Bhai. Very, very great congratulations to all of you. It's not an easy thing to keep something up for so long. But I of course knew that I've been seeing all sorts of messages about Mahatma Gandhi today, and of course such an inspiration for all of humanity. In fact, if ever I ask people who is someone that they admire most, any country in the world, actually, I've asked this question many times as part of some sort of a training, because it's in the people that we admire that we start to understand our own specialities. And always, someone or many mention Mahatma Gandhi as the person they most admire, together with Jesus Christ, together with the Buddha, together with, Nelson Mandela. So many are remembered when I ask them who do they admire most. And of course, what attracts us to people is their honesty and their integrity, because we trust someone who's honest. And so this is something I'd like to share about, actually.
Sorry, Brother Ken, I'll just interrupt you. I'm sorry for that. I need to do a formal introduction about you. So I'll just take a few more minutes before you start with the talk. Sorry. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Not necessary, but in brief.
Okay, yeah, very brief. And I'll be presenting a small poem also for you. So please don't mind. So all of you know Brother Ken very well. He's basically a very prolific writer, I must say. And he is in charge, or I must say, the instrument looking after all the Latin American centers of Brahma Kumaris. And he is one of those pioneers who came into knowledge in London since 1975. And he's the author of 18 books. You can just go online. Just to tell you one thing, all the books are more on personal and organizational development, and also on something called leadership. And he has been presented with the Personality of the Year award from the Brazilian Association in 2009. And very quickly, Brother Ken, I'll just speak a few words about you. So a poem in your remembrance. So Brother Ken has been the creator of the self-management leadership, and his books indeed have an immense readership. I'm sure all of you know this SML course, which was very famous in India. And it was Brother Ken who was the creator and had immense readership for that. He teaches the people how to improve the quality of life so that there's no tussle between the husband and wife. Through his talks, he is very much to the point and brief, and his talks teach us how to go away from grief. And while giving his introduction today, I have been very, very concise, but his wisdom and presentation indeed is very precise. The 18 books he's written show he's an avid writer, and on the life's journey, he's indeed a winning fighter. And day by day, you can see the spiritual sparkle on his face becoming brighter and brighter. And with the Supreme Divine's energy, he becomes mightier and mightier. And lastly, a few words on the value of honesty. So honesty is the best policy, which is indeed the foundation of every democracy. And today we are speaking about Mahatma Gandhi as well. So on this day, we remember the nation's father, but let's not forget to establish the connection with our Supreme Godfather. And I'm sure Brother Ken will help us in renewing that connection through meditation. Lastly, because through the Almighty's power to teach, our life can then for others become a preach. So then we can teach to preach. Then our relationships won't have a breach, and we can then for people be very easy to reach and establish a program called the Divine Outreach. So as Brother Ken alluded to before the poem I started. He mentioned it's very difficult to keep going on for so many episodes. But I think though we are on the 23rd episode, it's very easy because it's the supreme energy, the supreme divine being getting it done through all of us and all the instrument souls, the interpreters, the coordinators, and even very importantly, the speakers. They are so easily reachable. Just on the click of an email, they say yes. And we are so fortunate. We have Brother Ken with us, who has been so, I must not say busy, easy with a lot of talks he does. And before I lastly give it to him, there was a request to show the interpretation icon. I'll just share the screen and show that so that you all don't have any confusions or questions. So as you can see, you can click on the interpretation icon, the bottom panel, and click the language which you want in today to listen to. And with this, I'll also just say one important housekeeping instruction that you all can send in your questions to me on honesty, which I would ask Brother Ken after say around 45 minutes, 9 p.m. India time. And in the meantime, we will stop the chat box for a while so it doesn't disturb the speaker while he's speaking. So thank you, Brother Ken, once again, and over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Manoj Bhai. Yes, first of all, since it's about honesty, I have to be honest about something. I helped to create the SML course, but I wasn't the only one. So since we have honesty is about being truthful about things, I just wanted to set the matter straight. The self-managing leadership course, I helped training. In fact, we trained up about 100. There were 3 of us actually together, and we trained up 108 teachers in India to run that course, and it was very successful for many years. So it's nice that you reminded me of that great experience. But honesty, of course, as you said, I think that phrase is, you know, when in the Western world, they will remember George Washington as a person who never lied in his life, and as one of those founding fathers of the United States that created the phrase that honesty is the best policy. If you look at honesty, it's about being truthful, basically, and it's related to one of the original qualities of the soul, which is satya, means truth. But you can't separate really those deep innate qualities from each other. You can't have purity without truth. You can't have truth without happiness. You can't have happiness without love. You can't have peace without any of the others. So all of those original qualities of the soul, they come together. And then, and of course, that's the time then that we are completely 100% true in our relationships with ourselves and with nature, with each other. There's also been called integrity in a real sense, in practical behavior. Someone who has integrity, people will trust. But it's connected with transparency also, that, you know, there's nothing to hide, everything is on the table. It's connected with 2 other things, in my opinion, also sincerity and accountability, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. There are numerous studies, especially neurological studies. The neuroscientists have studied this a lot, but the psychologists also. Studies about cheating, in which sometimes they've used kids until that was not considered ethical to use kids in this sort of study, but they would, let's say, put some sweets on the table and then say, look, if you wait 5 minutes, you'll get 2 sweets, but you can't eat the sweet that's in front of you. So what would happen is that many times they would go away, right? And they're watching this child on the camera, and there are 5 minutes, the 5 minutes are ticking. There's a very delicious sweet in front of the kid. And many of them failed, you know, they just, I'm going to have this sweet and not wait for the 2 sweets. So all of these sorts of studies show us that, and also statistical studies show us that cheating and lying have become part of human nature in a way. An average person tells 1 to 2 lies every day. Even if they were so-called white lies, that you say something just not to upset someone. But we hear, let's say, so if everyone tells 1 or 2 lies each day and we interact with 60 people, we're going to hear 60 different versions. Now that may be intentional, that may be not intentional. And this plays a big role when they start to study, for example, the willpower that's necessary to avoid making false statements. You know, inside there's that battle going on. Should I say this, or should I hide it? Should I delay it? Should I just keep my mouth shut and let someone believe that something which if I open my mouth, they would stop believing. So we let lies continue, and that's also in a sense lying, you could say. But that battle involves a lot of activity in the frontal cortex, apparently. And it's not the cortex, it's not the organs of the brain that control us, you know. It's just that part of the computer that's activated when we're making an effort to avoid telling the truth, or to actually to avoid being false, whatever. But I was watching some neuroscientists explaining that this battle that happens, and it makes the frontal cortex quite robust, you know, the front part of the brain where the folds are, and where the you know, a lot of the mental activity happens. But he was saying that when people don't make that struggle, it's because of grace. And now, where does grace come in? The grace of God, for example. He didn't say that, but where does grace come into neurological studies? It's a bit hard to explain. So he's saying that there are some people that don't even have to make the effort to avoid being completely truthful, or to avoid being false, because it's natural for them. That naturalness comes from, we understand it comes from what's recorded in the soul itself. So it's a very fascinating topic. You know, how can I be naturally truthful? How can I be naturally pure? And that's where meditation comes into it. That's where meditation helps us. So let's just for a moment stop and just consider this. You know, the whole world is happening around me, so sit nicely where you're seated. The whole world is, you know, doing all sorts of crazy things at the moment. But I'm still, and I'm just observing. I'm just observing the moment. And there's a lot of ups and downs happening outside of me. There is there are a lot of true things that seem false, and there are a lot of false things that seem true, and there are a lot of false things that we can absolutely identify as being false. So we do live in a world where they say the world is false, the body is false, Maya is false, all of those things. So that's the world around us. And I'm sitting on my internal seat, behind the middle of the forehead, just sitting there observing. And I go inside and I touch my deep, deep qualities, that inside I am not just truthful, I am true, I am truth. It's one of my most basic qualities. And the fact that truth is absolutely inscribed in my original state, my deep foundational state that makes me perceive that things are not right or that things are right. It makes me feel uncomfortable when I perceive something as false because it doesn't harmonize with the truth that's recorded in me. So I just reached down inside myself and I remember that, yes, this is one of my God-given qualities, truth, together with peace, love, happiness, and so on. So I recognize that inheritance. I received that quality from God. It's there. And I just remember it and I bring it to the surface. And of course, as I look outside, based on my own inner truth, everything becomes absolutely clear. I can see things as they really are and not what they appear to be. I can see souls as they really are. And if I can see the bigger picture, not just how someone is in the moment or how someone's behavior has made him or her, but I see them as they really are. And the only feeling that I have, if my vision is truthful, is love. If someone's making efforts to change and become better, I feel respect. If someone is lost in their mistake and they're absolutely not making efforts to be truthful or correct, I feel mercy. So coming out from the deeper state of truth, I can only have two perceptions of people, through respect or through mercy. That's it, nothing else. No third feeling. So, and then we come back to the surroundings where we are and, just let's carry on with our little talk. So truth is my foundation. It should be from there, I should spring out into the world. And of course, the instrument of truth is honesty. That's the main instrument of truth. The way that I see things, the way that I interact with people, the way that I love them, all of that comes out from truth. And it does take a lot of training because we know that there's a lot of influence of our bodies. If we're in a male body, there are certain influences. If we're in a female body, certain other influences. In society, there are many influences from our peers, from our parents, from our teachers, from the governments, and from the systems that we've created and live within. So there are so many influences, and there's apparently, and this is something that I had to study in my professional work, something called self-deception. It's actually a whole area, not only of psychology, but even of philosophy. Because apparently, as human beings in this day and age, we have a very, very great capacity for self-deception. That means I fool myself about myself, and I fool myself about others. And so I leave the path of truth a little bit. Studies show, for example, that 80% of drivers think that they are better than average drivers. It's not possible, right? 80% of doctors, if you ask them, they think that they are better than average doctors. 80% of managers think that they are better than average managers. So there's something wrong there. It's not possible. Statistically, it's not possible. So either we are worse than we are better, or we are better than what we really are. And that's where this margin for self-deception comes in. And it's been very much studied. And there was a doctor, just using the example of doctors. There was a doctor who was Hungarian, but he was head of the maternity department at the Vienna General Hospital in the 1850s, more or less. This was before Louis Pasteur. And before we understood that microbes and bacteria were responsible for many deaths. And so they had no idea of microbial activity in 1850. It was later on when Louis Pasteur showed it and proved it. And what was happening in this hospital, this guy's name was Ignaz Semmelweis, Hungarian, a doctor, very respected, but of course very ignorant at the time. In those days, they thought that illness was because of the air, and they had to bleed people to get rid of any bad things that were in the body, and they had no idea of antibiotics, of course. And so what happened was there were two wards. There were the wards where the midwives would deliver babies. It was a maternity hospital, right? And there was another ward in which the doctors would deliver the babies. In the doctor's ward, the mortality rate was, 3 times the mortality rate in the midwives ward. And they had no idea why. They tried that, what was happening was, in fact, that the woman would die giving birth or soon after, and the same doctors that delivered the bodies would do an autopsy without washing their hands. They had no idea that they had to wash their hands, and sanitation. They had no idea of hospital hygiene in those days. You can imagine. So naturally, they're looking at a dead body. They're fiddling with a dead body, and then they go back, and then they would deliver other babies, of course, without washing their hands. And so again, someone would die. Now, one day, this is what the movies would show of this story. Let's say he goes home and his wife knows that he has been doing autopsies the whole afternoon, right? And so he comes to embrace his wife after an afternoon of autopsies, and she sort of rejects him, I don't want to touch you. And so he looks at his hands. There's something with my hands. Is that the reason why these women are dying? And so when he had this inspiration that everyone should start to wash their hands, especially the doctors. And the doctors became absolutely incensed with the idea. What do you mean we need to wash our hands? What do you mean we need to wash our hands? So they were living in illusion. They were living in ignorance. And of course, it wasn't great for his career. In fact, he was ostracized by the whole profession, that he had dared to challenge doctors that they had dirty hands, that they had to wash their hands even before they went into the hospital. As they came to the hospital, they had to wash their hands. A little bit like today, you have to get the alcohol in your hands, or some hand sanitation to go anywhere because of the virus. And they had no idea, let alone viruses. They didn't even have any idea of bacteria. And so it was very, very, became a huge thing. These people are living in illusion. After Pasteur, of course, he was of course recognized as the pioneer of hospital hygiene. But when people didn't know about it, he was completely ostracized. So the thing is that this is a big thing, that we can be truthful only if we have the full picture. If we don't understand things and we are ignorant, we are living in falsehood. Now, if you tell people, look, you are living in falsehood because you don't know anything about the soul, you don't know anything about God, you don't know anything about the history of what's happening here on this physical plane, you don't know anything about, you don't know anything about spirituality. If you tell that people, they'll become also upset, right? But you cannot be true if you are ignorant. That's the first point I wanted to make. And why I had to study this, because a company in Brazil is the biggest manufacturer of ships engines in the world, and they had a big manufacturing plant in Manaus in the Amazon region in Brazil, and they would, from there, their ships engines, huge ships engines and generators for oil rigs and so on. This company had sort of a waiting list for their products for about 8 years. And of course, that gets around any sort of economic downturn. They can wait out, right? And so within them, the HR person, the human resources person, can you develop a course on leadership and self-deception? I said, what do you mean? She said, well, we've got everything okay, but we don't understand. Our relationships amongst ourselves are terrible because we've become complacent. We think that we have got everything right, and we don't have any competition, and we just turn against each other. So I thought, what can I do? And I sat down and I started to note down adjectives about human behavior, right? And I ended up with a list of about 80 adjectives. Virtues, right? Cooperative, humble, innovative, creative, communicative, respectful, all of that. 80 different adjectives. So I figured out, what can I do with these people? So I said, okay, identify on this list of adjectives, what are the 5 things that you think you have naturally? What are the 5 virtues that you have naturally? And what are the 5 virtues that you think you need to improve on? So let's say the team was about 10 people. They were all of the main top managers, right? So each of them made a list, the 5 things that they had as virtues that they had naturally, and the 5 things that they need to improve on. So I need to be more respectful. I need to be more tolerant. I need to be more patient. But I'm courageous. I'm determined. I'm open. So those things. But the thing is, I asked everyone to score every other person. So everyone had their own list, and they had 9 other lists from each of the other members of the team. So I had my list of the things that I have naturally, and my list of the things that I need to develop. And the other ones had also scored me. So I have what everyone else thought of me, what they thought I needed to improve, and what they thought I had naturally. And I told them, look, to avoid fooling yourself, to avoid being dishonest with yourself, take these things into consideration. The things on your list, if they're similar to the things of the other people's lists, these are the things that you are okay about, you are revealing naturally, and you are flowing naturally, you don't have any problems about. These are the things that you're honest about. But if you look at your list and it's not on anyone else's list, this is something that you are hiding in some way, you are not revealing. And the third one was more interesting even. The things that are on everyone else's list but are not on your list, these are the things that you are blind about. These are your blind spots. So, and of course, there's a 4th category, the things that you have in potential that no one has seen and you haven't seen either, right? But that's another thing you could do later on. But there are 3 categories of, in our interaction with others where honesty, of course, is called into play. There are things that I think that I'm doing right, but no one notices. because I'm not revealing it in the best way. There are things that everyone notices, but I don't notice it in myself. I never imagined that you thought that I was like that. You know, everyone's saying I needed to improve my tolerance. And I think that I'm the most tolerant person in the whole world. There's some problem there, right? And this is the whole thing of honesty, isn't it? It's not just not telling lies. That's part of it, of course. And it's not just telling half-truths. I think there's a phrase in English, telling a half-truth is a full lie. You know, telling a half-truth is a full lie. In our interactions and dealings with others, people don't reveal the information that we need because they think that it will hurt us, or that they think that it will hurt their reputation, and so on. And it's a huge deal, right? As we go on accumulating 1 to 2 lies every day, right? For example, do you think about this, and you can put a mark for yourself between 0 and 10. Do you always tell, when you meet people, are you always genuine with your compliments to them? Because it's polite to give a compliment, but let's say someone's been harassing you, creating problems and creating all sorts of mischief, and you have to be polite to them. Is your compliment genuine? Oh yes, you are very good. This happens very much with our higher ups in organizations or even families. We don't say what we really feel. We say what's appropriate, and of course that's a lie, isn't it? I remember I was conducting a workshop in a very big organization in Hyderabad, in India. And I was in those days of the SML, right? It was the early 90s. And I confess that I wasn't very familiar with how Indian organizations work. But I was surprised because there was a group dynamic that I did in which people randomly chose someone else who was in the group and wrote down 3 virtues that they could see in that person. So everyone wrote down about someone in the room, 3 virtues. And then I told them, okay, I want you to now go and tell that person what you think their virtues are. You have to say it, not just think it. You have to say it. I think you are like this because of this and this. And it was interesting because one of the participants chose randomly his boss, his direct boss, who was the vice president of the company, right? And he had to say to him something good. And he'd been working with that vice president for 20 years. Imagine 20 years. He'd never showed his appreciation verbally to his boss. Never. And he had never heard from his boss any appreciation. You know, you're like this, you're like that. Business as usual. That's the excuse, isn't it? And how often can we be really sincere with people? For example, if you've had a really hard day, you're exhausted, and somebody asks you, how are you? And you say, I'm very well, thanks. Because you don't want to go into the details of how exhausted you are, why you've become exhausted. It's not good to be stressed out, right? It's not recognized as such. And so these are like things that happen so often. Let's say there's someone that you want to avoid and they call you and you tell them, no, I'm too busy. You can come and see me, but I don't have much time. You're not busy at all. But you just want to avoid the discomfort and so on. So that happens all the time, right? I'm not judging anyone here, but I don't think any of us are honest 100%. These are the games that we have to play to stay okay. But of course, we can get away with just one or two such things every day. But there are some people, and unfortunately mainly men, they're more prolific with their lying. If you look at the studies, 5, 6, or 7 lies every day, and mainly males do that. So it's very interesting the world that we live in, isn't it? Very interesting. And I mean, I remember once we allow people to believe something that's not true, for example. I remember, it's such a stupid example, but I'm going to tell you. I was in India, and I must say that I can't drink absolutely boiling hot chai. I can't do it. So I was with some other students of the Brahma Kumaris. We were sitting there in the dining area drinking tea, right? So I went and got my tea, but on the way, I put some cold water in it to make it cooler so that I didn't have to burn my tongue, right? And when I sat down with my friends, I started to drink the tea. And one of them said, wow, look at him. He's able to, take this boiling hot tea and not even feel it on his tongue, So what a great guy, And I allowed, unfortunately, I allowed people to believe that because it made me feel like, I'm great. But the next time I sat there, I had to tell them, look, guys, I don't like to drink very hot chai. So the other day, what I did was I put some cold water in it before I sat down. But I allowed you to think that I was such a great tolerant person can eat absolutely boiling chai. It's just a stupid thing, isn't it? But if I make such a mistake, why wouldn't I clarify it? Why wouldn't I clarify it? These are, this thing that I was telling you about with the sincerity, and I've asked this, I've actually done some studies in organizations about the level of sincerity. There's that phrase, you don't talk about the elephant in the room, but you talk about everything else. It's such a huge thing, a serious thing. Everyone's pretending that it doesn't exist, but it's the very thing that everyone needs to talk about, but they're afraid. So I ask people, how sincere is your place of work? How sincere are you with your family and your friends? How sincere are you with your boss? And of course, people look at their fingers, they look at the floor, they don't want to be completely sincere. But even if we go into the roots of the word sincerity, this comes from Latin, like many words. And it comes from Roman theatre, when they used to speak Latin. And it's connected with personality, person. In Roman theatre, they used to use a mask. They didn't change clothes to represent different roles in the play. They would have masks, and those masks were made of wax. And those masks they would hold on the end of a stick. So let's say I have to now play a different role. I just pick up that mask and I would start to say the lines of the play. And those masks, as I said, were made of wax. The name of the mask was persona. And from that comes the word person, and it comes the word personality, is the mask, right? I am the soul that's holding the mask. I am not the persona. I'm not the personage. I'm not even the personality. I have a personality, but I'm the one that holds it. And the word wax in Latin is cera, or cera, C-E-R-A. And the word without in Latin is sin, or sincera. That's how we just say it. Sincera, sincere. So the word sincere actually means, literally, it means without the wax, without the mask. So if I really want to be honest, I have to be the same inside as outside. And that's where you get such great people as Mahatma Gandhi was there. He wouldn't do anything that he wouldn't recommend anyone anything that he wouldn't do himself. The same inside as outside. There's that story of the mother took her daughter there to she was eating too many sweets, and Gandhi didn't want to tell the daughter that she was eating. He said, come back in a couple of weeks. And of course, the woman brought her daughter back a couple of weeks later. And Gandhi did say, no, you have to stop eating sweets. Why didn't you? The mother said, why didn't you tell me this a few weeks ago? And he said, well, I hadn't stopped eating sweets myself. So if I want to have an impact on people, I have to be the same inside and outside. It's like I have to be no mask. No mask. I don't need a mask. I do not need a mask. Every one of us can ask ourselves, am I really what I've been telling people over these years? Am I really that? Am I different from some of the stories that I've told? Have I, let's say, boosted up my CV? I remember I was sitting in a program in Delhi, and there was a guy next to me, and he gave me his card, like people exchange their business cards. And after his name was about 16 letters, all of the awards and diplomas that he has. Mr. So-and-so, 16 letters after his name. I mean, I'm not that. I'm not a CV, resume with legs. I'm not a walking CV. I'm just a human being. Those things are my roles. I'm not the role. And this is where we come to probably the main essence of what I wanted to share with you. There's a difference between being aware of the soul and everything that involves, and not being aware of it. And we call it in Brahma Kumaris the difference between soul consciousness. I'm aware that I'm the soul. I'm aware that I'm a spiritual being going through this human experience. I'm not a human being looking for a spiritual experience. So I have a bigger awareness, which has a lot of connotations. And the other, the limiting and I would say a false premise is to understand myself as a body. It's false. I'm not a body. I have a body. So even the premise of living in body consciousness is wrong from the start. So everything that I develop through body consciousness has that tinge of falsehood. Always, everything I do. So this idea of telling 1 or 2 lies every day, if you're totally in body consciousness, everything you do is a lie. Let's just be quite honest about that, because it's not real, it's not true. And so it's a bigger thing. I'll give you an example. Soul conscious, a state of consciousness, right? I am the soul. On the basis of that consciousness, I have an outlook, I have a perception. I have an attitude. So let's say, and in body consciousness, I just, everything is connected with the body, the gender, the nationality, the what state I'm from in any country. It's connect with the religion that I have and the age and so on. Everything I do in that consciousness has a sort of taint of falsehood. So from the beginning to the end, so let's take an example. So there's a young guy, adolescent, let's say youth, maybe 18-year-old, which is sort of rebellious, and he does something really bad, and he goes against his father's instructions, right? So there are two ways that father would face that, in body consciousness or in soul consciousness. In body consciousness, he will think, I am the father. How dare this young brat do this to me? I gave him very clear instruction. He not only didn't do it, he went against everything I said. And so the father becomes very upset, very angry, calls the kid for a conversation that does not go well. They end up fighting. And what happens as a result? The relationship is destroyed even further. Now, if that same father were soul conscious, he would think like this: I am a soul. This one who's playing the role of my son is a soul. We are both souls. We are both in this big process. We are both trying to be the best that we can. We don't know where we've been before. We've had many births. We've been around. We're each in our own karmic process. I am not the father. I have the role of a father in this birth. And this soul has the role of my son. So let me see this situation as a learning opportunity. And let me call him to have a chat. And we can see what both of us have learned from this. The result is that the relationship will probably become stronger. So you see the difference. One opens us up, makes us very easy. Honesty creates ease in relationships. There's nothing to be afraid of. The false premise of body consciousness creates fear, creates the illusion of power, maybe. So many different things. So everything actually comes back to soul consciousness, everything. And everything comes back to the fact that I have these original qualities that we were thinking about in the beginning. And that everything brings us back to God, because he is the source of all of this, And so if we are connected with the source of truth, there's no way that I can not be truthful. If I'm not connected, then of course there's lots of games. So let's again connect up as we did in the beginning. Let's all sit nicely and let's just observe what's going on around us physically in the places where we are, and then let's look at the world around, such craziness going on. But I'm sitting in my original qualities, I'm sitting on the seat of the soul behind the forehead. But not just that, I'm sitting in my original qualities. One of the main one, I suppose, is truth, Satya. And on the screen of my mind, I visualize the one who is the source of truth. The spiritual sun that we call God or Allah or Jehovah or Shiva or the Great Spirit, so many different names, but it's that one. So internally, I remember that one. That means I connect up mentally. I'm in front of that spiritual sun like a flower opening up, to receive that power, those rays. I'm just soaking up that truth, that peace, that love. And it opens my perspective totally, the way that I should interact with others and the world and with nature. If I want to reveal the Father, I have to reveal truth in me. Remove all excuses. Remove all of my false premises. Remove all of my fear. And be open and truthful with everyone. So let's just enjoy that moment of taking in and absorbing those qualities. And we gradually come back to the normality of our surroundings and open our eyes a little bit more. And Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you so much, Brother Ken. A very practical talk on so many examples of how not being honest has become the norm of the day. So a few questions popping up right in front of me is that since the qualities of the soul are honesty and truth, as you mentioned, so in this profession, whichever the profession the brother is, I see so many people who are dishonest and who are very successful. And there's a lot of competition. So how do I deal with this competition? Because if I'm honest, I am not successful. That's what the brother is asking.
Yeah. If you're selling things, the competition is based on who can lie best. The thing is that you can get short-term benefits from lying, but you can't get long-term benefits from lying. Even you'll find people who respect honesty, right? I just recently, I went because there was some problem with my car, so I went to the mechanic, and the mechanic had a look quickly, and he said, "I'm going to charge you $200 because you've got a problem with your muffler under the car." $200, okay. So I went to another. I went to another mechanic just to check if that was really the problem. And the second mechanic had a look, and he got his screwdriver and tightened up something, and he said it's fixed. I said, "How much do you want to charge me?" He said, "Nothing. All I did was just tighten a bolt. I'm not going to charge you anything." So let's use that example. The one that was honest, I would tell a few people, they will tell a few people, they will tell a few people, "Like, if you want to go to a good mechanic, it's this guy, it's this guy, it's this guy." So let's say the word of mouth will glorify this honest mechanic. And secondly, as I told the story of the honest mechanic, I also told the story of the dishonest one. So that will also spread to, I don't know, one will tell 5, 5 will tell 20, 20 will tell 100. So what happens in the long run, that first guy will lose business and the second guy will grow his business. That's what I've seen, you know, even at a high level, high corporate level. The ones that have the greatest asset of any organization is its reputation. The number one most valuable asset of any organization is its reputation. So if you got a reputation of cheating, you'll get better than the other cheats. Maybe you're fighting with other cheats, but you don't have a good reputation. But if you are honest and clear and true, your reputation will grow. Okay.
Great. Another question about Brahma Kumaris in general, that you all keep saying that it's the Iron Age. In Hindi we say Kal Yug, so it's Iron Age. So in this Iron Age, as you rightly said, that all of us are very dishonest in one way or the other, which means we speak lies many times. So how do we explain the entire profession of lawyers and advocates who thrive on this dishonesty? Because like one party has to win, and they win probably because of speaking lies. So how do we explain that?
Well, yeah, it's a difficult thing, you know. How many lies are there in medicine, you know? Lie is not just a conscious thing. But if you propagate a wrong belief for a long time, you're selling a lie also. You know, there are so many beliefs that are not true, that are subsequently proven to be not true. Any type of science, you know, the things that we believed 100 years ago, 200 years ago, they're a complete bunk now. They've been completely put aside because they've been there for so long. But you know, let's say the theory of evolution even has never been proven. It's just a theory. So people are selling theories as if they were facts, and of course it happens always. But of course lawyers are trying to find loopholes in the laws, right? They're not really trying to find the best way for people to follow legal systems. They are trying to find, they try to protect people, you know, against loss in any way. And of course, if they're good lawyers, they can manipulate the facts. So it's part of the deal, right? So what do you do? Change profession. Unless you find people, if you're a doctor that's been propagating, for example, hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin, you've been propagating that, and of course the local health authority is saying, no, nothing doing, it's not right. So what do? You stop being a doctor. You know, you're trying to, you do the best you can. That's the first thing. And you try to inspire people to be the best you can. But as you say, it's Kali Yuga. You will not find any pure organization, not one. So don't even expect it.
Right.
I'm sorry, that's not a great answer. You don't even expect it. I used to work as a chemist, right? I used to work in a cosmetics company, and I was making perfumes for women to put on their skin to smell nice. It's the lust industry, right? So I spoke to our leader at that time, was Daddy Prakash Mani. Daddy, I'm working in this industry. What should I do? She said exactly that. There's no work that you'll find that's absolutely free of the vices, one or the other. But what you have to do is you have to influence people positively there. You know, of course, if you're working in an armaments factory making bombs, maybe it's a good idea to change your profession. Or making whiskey, for example, it's probably a good idea to change your profession. But try to influence people to be better. That's all you can do.
Right, great. Actually, there was another question you already answered, that the person is owning a business. He is a liquor merchant selling wine. So is that a good profession, he's asking?
Liquor. He's a liquor merchant. Probably not. To be quite honest, because it creates so much misery. I don't know how you can get around it, but start to think about it at least, because you at some point in your life, there's everything that we do has some karmic return. So if you are directly responsible for something, you're pushing something that's harming people and harming marriages even, let's say, it's a direct responsible for a lot of domestic violence, the fact that people drink. So you've got a hand in that. So you're going to get a return from that too. There's no way you're going to escape it. So it's probably worthwhile thinking about what you could do alternatively if you want to become more conscious. It's like you're trying to cut off the branches of a tree, right? You're sitting on the branch. Right? I'm going to get rid of certain things, but in this case, you're sitting on the wrong side of the saw. So you're cutting the branch, but you're sitting on the wrong side of it. So when the branch falls, you'll fall too.
Right. Great. Another question from another profession. You took the name of that profession, doctors. So a doctor is saying, and I think this question even I had to ask, a very similar one. So he's saying that when we sit with patients and we have to counseling for a very severe disease they have. So right at the first visit in the clinic, we can't tell them everything. So does that mean that I am being dishonest when I'm counseling them and not telling them the facts?
No, I think if you've got a system of ethics within medicine, like you have in all professions, and you are following that code of ethics, and that code of ethics says, don't tell them at the phone. You've got to prepare people for such news, right? So you're not being dishonest. You're following your code of ethics.
Yeah, that's very relieving to know that. Great, because we deal with such situations day in and out. Okay, you mentioned a few words. One is sincerity and second is integrity. So, the thing which you said was that if we are not able to have this thought, word, and action in sync, then that is impurity. So obviously, honesty is very closely related to purity. So how do I develop this purity of thought, word, and action so that I can be honest all?
Okay, what's the best thing that I can do now with my life? And if my life is just for earning money and getting tired and going to bed and eating, well, I don't need to do much. But if I want to have a life which has the return of happiness and the return of love, because all of these things I have to work on to if I want respect, I have bit by bit, little by little. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. A very interesting question, brother. Just the question popped in right now. I think it's closely related, so I'll just ask it right away. He's saying that Sri Krishna in the Mahabharata or Gita says that you can lie if something good is happening for the cause of that person whom you are lying for. So when you're protecting someone ethically and speaking a lie, you're being dishonest. So is this okay?
I'll give you another example. Let's say there's a flood in the country, right? And you are a company, you own a company that has to send medicine to that, that has a specific medicine that is especially for that particular problem in that part of the country, and no one else has it except you, right? The only thing is that to get the medicine to the people, there are some people in between who are charging a bribe, right? They are wanting some money so that you can deliver that to save people's lives. But your company says, no, we don't pay bribes. So if you don't pay the bribe, people will die. So then you have a different scale of ethics. What's more important, people's lives or paying the bribe? I think most people will pay the bribe to save lives. So if there's something higher, go for the higher thing, even if it means I don't know how what exactly the example is of this person, but always go for the higher result. If it saves something, life is the number one thing. If what you have to do is to get around something, okay, no problem, because in the long run, the fact that you've saved lives will have a bigger positive karmic return than you paying the bribe. Okay?
Right.
Just made me think of a strange example, but why not?
Yeah, great. And you took this, you covered it about appreciation and praising other people. The question very closely relates to that if my friend is not wearing a dress which is suiting him, I mean, he's looking very shabby, but I can't tell him that I just tell him that your dress is looking very good. So what should I do? There's a lot of conflict. The dress doesn't suit him. That's the truth, which I feel, but I have to really appreciate him and tell him, no, it's looking good. So how do I deal with this conflict? Or should I just shut up and not say anything?
Probably best not to say anything. But if you're open to the person, if the person is open to you, you have to do it as sort of a sandwich type of thing. You say something good, then you say the correction, and then you say something good at the end. So that's the sandwich.
Right. Great. And you mentioned about Dadi Prakashmani. So for people who are new in the audience, she was one of our chief of Brahma Kumaris many years ago. And there's another chief with which Brother Ken has spent a long, long time, Dadi Janki. I think she was the one who was instrumental to teach you meditation. So she used to always say in Hindi, rather it's a word in Sindhi or Urdu, we say, sach ta vetho nach. I'll just translate it, that if a person is truthful and honest, he'll keep dancing all the time. So do you want to share a few examples of how Dadi Janki led a life on honesty and she was dancing all the time inside from the mind?
I don't think she was consciously honest in a way. She was natural. And that came across as truthfulness. You know, it was probably impossible for her to think otherwise in any situation. So, as I said, honesty is sort of the instrument of truth, right? And so if she's truthful inside, she doesn't have to worry about being honest or not honest externally, about what's going to happen or what's not going to happen. And, you know, I remember an example that she was in Brazil, and a reporter asked her, "Daddy, what would you do if you were assaulted in the street, like somebody tried to rob you in the street, right?" And she just looked at the report and said, with such power, "That would never happen to me." So she doesn't operate on that plane where bad things happen, right? That's what I started to think about. She's not there, so she wouldn't be present for any thief to come. Would never happen, because she's protected internally. She has such a sense of protection from God, for example, that she was absolutely fearless. But it wasn't conscious fearlessness. She didn't even know what fear was, right? So why should she work? I now have to make efforts to be fearless. Now I have to make efforts to be honest. Now I have to make efforts to be this and that. No, let me have such a close relationship with the Supreme that these virtues come out naturally without me thinking about it. When you're still aware that you have a virtue, it's not complete yet. It's when you stop being aware of it that you have it naturally. For example, take courage. When you feel that you've been courageous, you're probably not courageous 100%. But when you're doing something courageous and you don't even feel that you've been courageous, then it's natural. So I see Daddy's honesty and truthfulness as natural to her. And having that, you know, she became a mirror. And I've seen that many times. People come in front of her and they don't see her, they see themselves because she's a mirror. She's such a clean mirror. And the people realize that I've seen it many times. People have a huge problem. They come in front of her. And because she's so clear and so truthful, so she's truth, right? People don't see her, they see themselves. And she asks them, what do you want us to talk about? They say, I've forgotten, I don't remember. Because they've seen it for themselves, they don't need to talk about it anymore.
Right, fantastic. So that's the power of truth. And she's so transparent, as you rightly said. I can see when in front of her myself. And I know the time has just gone ahead. I'll just take this last question because it's a very deep question, and the soul is asking that you mentioned that there is dishonesty in body consciousness. When you are in total body consciousness, there is dishonesty. So how do we recognize the honest inside body consciousness?
No, the thing is, yeah, what I meant was, of course, it's not that you're consciously dishonest. It's just your premise for everything is wrong. It's false. So if you start to see things not as a role, but as a soul, that's one part of it. You start to feel things not as a body, but as a soul. So I'm the soul, not the body. So my references are not the sense organs only, but, you know, a wider vision of things. I have to open up my vision, make my third eye open up, because there are more things, just the things that I can see, touch, hear, and feel. Open up and see, and use that third eye, not just these ones. Secondly, I'm the actor, I'm not the role, so therefore I can administer my roles properly. And I'm not, this is probably the most difficult one, I'm not my story. You know, I was born, I grew up, this and that happened, my parents, my childhood, when I was at school and then at university and my first job and this and that and this and that. So I carry this story in my head, but I'm not my story. I'm the soul that has had this story. So as I start to practice those things, my premises change and I become naturally honest. Whereas before I was naturally dishonest in the limited consciousness without perceiving it. Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for pointing out this, that we have to move from role consciousness to soul consciousness. So thank you. Wonderful examples and very deep ones. So with this, now I would like to invite Dr. Ashok Mehta to propose the vote of thanks to you. Over to you, Doctor.
Wow. Ashok Bhai.
So nice to see Ken, Brother Ken, at the other part of the world. I went once to Brazil, and that's the time he was in Sao Paulo, but I missed him because he was traveling. So Brother Ken is so humorous, so good. We enjoyed. I like your concept of sandwich, how to tell a person the truth in a roundabout way. I think that's a beautiful way of putting things. Ken Bhai, we have really enjoyed your talk, and I think you have given us lots of insight into honesty, where we are sometimes dishonest, but we believe that we are honest. Our honesty is a relative. What you said in a hierarchical structure, that you have to be somewhere choose a higher purpose to be honest or dishonest for that matter. Thank you very much for bringing these beautiful things in our day-to-day life, which explains many things when you look at a hierarchical way and sandwich way. Thank you once again.
Thanks, Ashok Bhai. Nice to see you.
Om Shanti, brother.
Om Shanti.
So thank you so much, both of you. And over to Anu's sister for the quick announcements, and then we'll go into the meditation mode on honesty with Brother Ken. So over to Anu, sister. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. So up to this very practical insight on honesty by Brother Ken, we'll have our values workshops on honesty. So there will be experiential reflective exercises on honesty, and again an insightful talk about honesty by Sister Gayatri. It will be next weekend, Saturday, 9th October, India time 7:30 p.m. and West Coast Canada time 7 a.m. So the Zoom ID and passcode are the same for these workshops always. So please note and join. And our next Values for Life series is episode 24 on the value power, that is Shakti in Hindi. And for that, we will have Brother Eric, the National Coordinator of Brahma Kumaris of Canada. It's happening after 2 weeks, 16th of October, same time. And the links are always the same too, joining links. So join us to discover the spiritual power that we all hold within with Brother Eric. And I want to bring your attention to two special events happening this month. The very first one is on Dasera. That is a festival celebrated in India. And we'll have our senior Asha Didi to take us through the understanding of the spiritual significance of this festival. So mark your calendar and hope you will all join. That is happening 2 weeks after. That is Sunday, 17th October, 9 a.m. India time. That is 8:30 p.m. West Coast, US and Canada. And the other very special program that's happening is our first anniversary of Values for Life series. This started on the occasion of World Values Day last year, October, and we'll have the first anniversary episode in this October on the occasion of the World Values Day. And this will be very special. We'll have the fortune to listen to the spiritual wisdom from all the seniors from all different parts of the world. So we'll have Mohini Didi from New York, Jayanti from UK, Brother Ken will have again with us on that day from Brazil, and Brother Eric from Montreal. However, this is happening on 20th of October, that's a Wednesday. It is a weekday, and the time is 8 p.m. India, that is 7:30 a.m. West Coast, US, Canada, 10:30 a.m. East Coast, US and Canada. We'll intimate you with the invitation later, but just wanted to bring to your attention so that you can mark your calendar and join us then. And about all the information about these programs, you can find on our websites. Please visit bihasa.in or vancouver.brahmakumaris.ca. And all the videos of these programs also you can find on the video section and YouTube channel. So check us out there. Thank you.
So thank you, Sister Anu. Now we go on with the meditation with Brother Ken.
Just for how long?
5 to 7 minutes. We have 5 to 7 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay, wonderful. So again, sit nicely in your seats. And remember, this way. I am the soul. I have a body through which I express and experience in this physical world. I came into it. One day I'll leave it. It's just my temporary residence. So I can detach from it. I'm the sole actor. And through the body I play many roles, but I'm not any of those roles. In fact, my primary role is to help God in his task of world transformation. And I have secondary roles as family, work, and so on. But this is my main role, to serve. To serve as God's instrument. To do that, I need to connect. So again, in my mind's eye, I see that one that we lovingly call Shiv Baba. The one supreme. That's radiating qualities. So I soak up those qualities. Peace, love, happiness, purity, truth. And I become a tiny lighthouse in the center of the forehead. So I'm just absorbing those qualities and radiating them out into the world, taking from one side and giving from the other. Just keep that connection, no interruptions. Just absorbing God's qualities and radiating them out into the world. The good thing is that I can come back to this connection anytime, any place. Become a giver of peace and love and happiness and truth, and not a searcher. So little by little we come back, opening our eyes more and becoming familiar with our surroundings. And may you have the best rest of your life. Om Shanti.
So thank you once again, Brother Ken. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everyone. Take care. Thank you.